Hi there, my name is Gunnar Wettergren, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about product portfolio maturity. I'm going to introduce the topic. Along with this, there's going to be a lot of resources that you can read to create your own opinion on the topic, but I will introduce it, give some examples, give a general overview of how you should think about product maturity, how it fits in to the overall discussion around product portfolios, and show two different approaches to this product maturity. As well in the course, you'll find quite a few written resources like papers, a couple of books actually, ebooks that are available to you, where you can go through it, create your own opinion and your own ideas around product maturity and how this fits into the overall scheme of things. But let's start by looking at how and where product portfolio maturity fits in, where we do need to discuss it in a bigger overall scope of things, right? So if we look at the highest level, you'll probably find that product portfolio management has four basic components. We have a selection process, where we previously have talked about already that strategic alignment. The products we do select need to meet some sort of criteria. It needs to be aligned with what we want to accomplish, and so on. So that's one thing we already talked about. Moving on, we get to the optimization of the portfolio. Questions that we've discussed in this course has been like, are we utilizing our resources in a good way? Have we constructed an optimal portfolio? Well, we all, at the end of the day, realize that optimization is not really something that we strive for, but we can do as best as we can. We can never reach it, but we can do as best as we can under the current limitations and constraints. But this has also been handled already. Moving on, we need to protect the value of the portfolio somehow, right? We monitor products, we assess product portfolio health, we look at the risks regarding to products, we constantly evaluate whether the product should be continued or discontinued, shut down. Are we still adding benefits to the organization that we want, right? Depending on the length of the product, for example, and so on. And these are all questions that we've touched upon previously and that you've read about. So the last step really is the topic of this lecture. The mature portfolio process, you could call it, right? So the development of the usage of the portfolio inside the organization, right? And the underlying rationale here is that if we have a very good functioning portfolio where benefits are clear, where we select products in a good way, and so on and so forth, all the aspects that we've talked about in this course, a good, mature portfolio should translate into that we realize a lot more of the benefits that we want, right? So the better we get at this, the better the benefits that we get from it are going to be. Well, that makes perfect sense, I guess, right? So that's how the maturity process fits into this. And then it's a continuous process and it returns back again, right? And the overall goal of this is obviously to maximize the value of the organization in itself, right? Okay, moving on. This is how it fits in. What we're going to do now is kind of walk through one of the processes or one of the ways you can approach this, all right? So this is a somewhat generic model of maturity, and it's the way you should look at this, and there are quite a few different types of models like this, is that you should see it as a staircase, one could say, right? That you start way down here, and then as you get better at this continuously, you walk up a staircase, right? Right. Sorry for my drawing, but anyway. So down here you have maturity level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? And climbing this ladder is not going to be automatic. It's actually a involved process. It's management or people working with this being really conscientious and continuously developing, as we saw on the previous slide. Throughout this process of running projects, we have to develop our portfolio management as well, right? So this is important to remember, that this does not happen by itself. It's a conscious effort and a conscious process that we need to work with, all right? So what we're going to do now is go through these various levels, right? So I'm not going to just read them off. You see them in front of you. You can look at them, and we'll move right into the first level, right? So the level 1, which is very much an initial stage, right? It's really what it does is it starts the process, right? This is where we kind of recognize that we have a PPM process in itself, right? We don't really have any practices or standards, but maybe we've started to realize that there is a need for a PPM process inside organizations, right? But we haven't really started with our work yet, right? However, the responsibility or the accountability aspects of projects have not been developed, and this is something we need to do. When it comes to documentation of projects, before, during, or after, are quite loose in ad hoc in nature. We kind of do them when we need to, right? Right? And the funding, the rationale for funding is somewhat iffy, you know. Some of the times we don't have the whole information. We don't have enough really in this stage. We fund products based more on gut feeling, what feels like good ideas, and so on and so forth, right? So this is very much a rudimentary first stepping stone which we need to go through. We need to realize that there is a need for it. All right, so then moving on to level 2, which is then we have matured somewhat, right? We have a PPM process, but it's not really what's called organizational standard. It has not been integrated into the standard work practice in the organization, right? We've documented some of it, but it's still very much a basic process, right? We've started to allocate management or get management support. They realize, hey, it's important, but that's about it, you know? Because unfortunately, there's no consistency in the mandate to get all these projects that we run a part of the PPM process, right? There's nothing forcing a product manager, for example, to get involved and to use this, right? It's very much at this point, very much a voluntary thing, right? So now we move to level 2, which is, okay, we have matured. We went from a kind of let's have a PPM process. Now we have it, but has not really been integrated yet into the overall scope of the organization. So let's move on to level 3 then, which is a defined integrated state, right? So what we have now is a process that has been integrated, right? It's in place and it's well established as an organizational standard, right? Most projects, but not all, right? That's important. We have not 100%. And management has made a decision that this is an important process and has been made part of the organizations. There are formal documentations, we can check off that. Senior management is involved regularly, and we have started or have done part of the PPM process as automated as much as we can. So we've gotten quite far, right? In this is most likely where most product companies you'll find themselves when they work with PPM. We do have an evaluation and management of the portfolio and the projects with an organizational strategy and business value as the overall goals, right? Right. So this is very much this is a nice place to be. We're starting to get there, right? And a lot of companies, in my opinion, stop here. You know, it's more than enough. It works. It's enough for the organization, and it's probably on a cost benefit level that fits a lot of organizations when it comes to how much it costs to implement this contra what you get out of it, for example. But you know, moving on, there's obviously a lot more we can do. But now it comes more to management, as you can see. We bring in the past, what we have learned from previous projects, and what we expect. So it's a bigger discussion around what can we bring with us from the past into the project we're doing, right? And what is needed over here in the future that also influences our decisions here. So this is what we'll do, right? When we make decisions and we manage a portfolio. We start using metrics and objectives somehow. So we start to evaluate the portfolios in a more, I wouldn't say scientific, but more concrete and more organized way, right? And we start seeing that information about projects are integrated into, for example, ERP systems or other corporate planning, corporate systems that are used for business decisions. So portfolio information is actually being used as a basis for decisions in other areas, right? And all the processes, all the standards and everything that we have put in place for portfolio management has been incorporated into the corporate process and overall systems. So it's now very much a part of our DNA, one could say, right? So that's important to remember. That the previous step, we had all the parts, but it really wasn't integrated as an integral part of the organization. In this step, we take it all the way and say, okay, let's get it into everything we do, make it a natural part of the DNA we have as an organization. And the fifth step then, the highest level you can attain, at least in this model, is that we have a process that actually actively focuses on improving our product portfolio management, right? We not only have put one in place, we also have a process in place that tries to improve it. We try to learn from what we do, right? The lessons learned, and this also improves the PPM process. So the fifth step very much deals with not so much putting more of portfolio management in place, rather how we continuously work with making it better, making it more exact, making the measurements more concrete, and so on, right? So this is the fifth and final step where it actually deals with the development of the PPM process itself. All right. Okay, so that's the fifth staircase model. That's one way of looking at it, of course, and of course there are multiple ways. We're going to take a look at one more. I'm not going to go through all of these. Of course, it's going to take a while, but in this case, you can look at these and see a little bit more information. So up here, we have the various maturity levels, right? 1 to 3 through 5. And at this axis, we have the various components of a project, right? We have the initiation, we have the selection, the product portfolio management, performance monitoring, resources, and governance, right? So and this matrix outlines what parts are in place and how they act throughout the various maturity levels and all of these different components. So it's a very nice cheat sheet for you to use to get a good overview of what we're talking about. So for example, in maturity level 1, the project initiation just happens. Someone gets a good idea, it's kind of a eureka moment, and everybody goes, hey, let's do it. So not very much afterthought when it comes to why is it a good idea really? Can we make money on this? And so on and so forth, right? And then at the fifth level, we have a lot more groundwork being done. We collect data in order to support our decisions. We benchmark things against other projects or similar initiatives, right? We identify various different types of products and we make a conscious selection based on data that we've collected, as well as gut feeling, of course. I mean, we're still humans and we're not going to forget about that part, right? But we base our decisions on a lot more information and a lot more afterthought, right? And as we progress through this, as we get better and progress through this, we develop our portfolios. We do a lot more in each step, right? And again, here it deals with coming from a very haphazard situation down here up to a more structured world with standards, development processes, and a more mature but also more defined process that we have. Okay, but as you can see, there are multiple approaches. There are so many different ways you can look at this. So what I suggest is now is take a look at some of the links and some of the documents that have been added to the course platform, and look at those and read through. Pick your battles. Some of them are quite extensive, and some of them are shorter. I need you to understand what maturity means in a setting, but I also want you to understand what the different levels entail, right? In general, I mean, at some point you're going to realize that they all pretty much say the same thing, these different types of models. But I'll let you get to that realization on your own, and I'll thank you for the time, and I wish you good luck.